Welcome to Leadership is Life. Thank you so much for coming and joining us today. I'm super excited about our special guest, Dr. Candace. She is an amazing clinical addiction therapist, and she has some beautiful views. And she's written a book about loving the addict and loving yourself. We have lots of great questions, lots of good content for you to be able to take home today and say, wow, I understand that better now. Oh, I could do this. So our job is to bring you hope, joy, and freedom. And I just want to say thank you, Dr. Candace, for being with us. We're very grateful. And I'm going to hand it over to you. Why don't you let our audience know who you are and what you do so well.
Oh, okay, thank you, Dawn. Hi, everyone. I think you're the first person that's been calling me Dr. Candace. I think that's fine.
Okay.
It's fun. It's fun for me. Anyway, I'm Candace, and I'm an addictions therapist in private practice, and I have been for about 30 years. I am also an addict myself, and I have almost 35 years clean and sober. I was, thank you. I became addicted to opioids, to codeine and morphine and drugs like that in my early 20s because I have Crohn's disease, and at the time that I was diagnosed with that in the 70s, nobody knew what to do for me. It was a new disease; they didn't know what to do, so they just kept throwing medications at me, and the medications were addictive. Little did I know, because addiction wasn't on the radar the way it is now at that point. So I went through about 15 years of using these drugs and Valium and all kinds of, and pot. I would drink even though that hurt. Crohn's disease is an inflammatory bowel disease, very difficult to manage, can be very painful. I'm a lot better now. In fact, next year, I will be celebrating, if you can call it that, 50 years of having Crohn's.
And having it under control.
And having it under control for the last 20, 25 years, because I really, being clean and sober has allowed me to look at how I can take care of myself. So it's been wonderful. I'm much better now. And you may hear me clearing my throat. My throat's a little rough today. Sometimes I think it's because I smoked too much pot when I was younger, but who knows? But yeah, so I've I've been an addictions therapist for, like I say, about 30 years, and I've been I specialize in working with families that are dealing with addiction, that have an addict in the family. It's a terrifying, devastating situation for families to be in. They don't know what to do. There's very, very little help out there. And because they don't know what to do, they so often unwittingly do some of the wrong things that they shouldn't be doing. So I help them see. I have a team of therapists that work with me, and we help them learn how to deal with their addicts in a different way, so that the whole family dynamic can change, and also so that the addict has a fighting chance of getting better. Because when you're doing the wrong things, and I think we're going to talk about that, but when we're doing the wrong things for an addict, it keeps them stuck.
Yes.
So we need to learn how to actually deal with this in a way that can help. So that's what I do, and I've had tremendous success in my practice and with the families I work with. I just love the work. I feel so blessed and honored to be able to do this. Yeah,
it's a beautiful work. It's so valuable. Interesting how small the world is. My family deals with Crohn's and other kind of issues. I'm very familiar, and also addiction. And it's I actually had a friend who was raised by a mother who was an alcoholic, and he didn't really get everything squared away in his life. He missed a marriage, and I mean, he was married, but they ended up in divorce because there were issues. But when he
Yeah.
went to Al-Anon, and when he went and got the help that he needed, like if he knew about you, he could have come and talked to you. And he didn't
Yeah.
have addiction in his life, but he needed that kind of help. So it's really everybody. It affects really everybody in the family, doesn't it?
It does. Everybody's affected. Everybody needs to heal. You
Yeah.
know, the dynamics that are going on that are problematic need to heal because families love their addicts. It's not that you don't love your addict. You
Yes.
sometimes don't like your addict. You know, like what they're doing, you don't like how they're behaving, but you love them.
Yes.
And many people remember them as how they were before the addiction got started too. Um, so yeah, everybody needs to heal from this. And the more people, when we work with families, the more people that we can bring in the addict circle of love, we like to call it, um, the more family members that can be involved, the better.
Mhm.
That doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes there are family members that have just had it. They don't want anything more to do with it. You know, they don't want to come to counseling, but we'll work with whoever comes, and it's going to get better. It doesn't get better if you don't do something about it, because
Yes.
addiction is what we call progressive, and it just keeps on getting worse and worse and worse. And we see this playing out all over our news and everywhere, unless there's some kind of help that really works. So people need to be careful about the kind of help they choose as well.
That's really powerful. It's very powerful, and it's very encouraging,
Yeah,
because an addiction literally does become all consuming to everybody around
for
them,
everyone.
for
Yes.
everyone. And you want to get back to living with the people that you love and that addict, in a healthy way. And it's
Yeah.
wonderful to know that there's hope. There's great hope, and I love what
Yeah.
Dr. Candace has to say, because she has a really great take on it. So, if you need to, grab yourself a pen and paper and get ready. We're going to start diving into some really good questions. Um, Thank you for sharing how you got into this field. It's very
Thank you.
personal, and it's very
Yeah.
rewarding.
It's yeah, it was quite personal. I had been teaching before when I reached the bottom for myself, and I had my own breakdown and knew that I needed to get some help, and I actually became suicidal. I did not want to live the way I was living. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know where to get help. Again, addiction wasn't on the radar in the same way. Um, and when I finally found where to get help and started my recovery, I knew I wanted to work in this field in some way, and it's morphed into working with families. So
How beautiful, that's really the way life is. We
mm,
we run into these situations, and we don't mean to run into the situations, and then we find
yeah,
ourselves in a place. So there is no shame, there's no blame here. What's here
right,
is love, what's here is hope, and what's here is freedom.
yeah.
Understand that this is a normal part of life, that I don't believe there's any families really that are totally untouched by one of these issues.
Probably not, but even if there is, I mean, even if you've got like the Waltons or the Brady Bunch,
Right.
um, it's kind of gotten to the point now where everybody knows somebody.
Hmm.
Everybody knows a family that's dealing with this. Everybody knows somebody that's dealing with addiction. So it's everywhere and it's all over the world. And we counsel people all over the world. We are international, we are worldwide. If you're listening from someplace other than North America, I'm in Canada, I'm in Vancouver, Canada, which I love so much.
Yeah.
Um, but because of Zoom, I mean, that was one of the good things about COVID was Zoom.
Yes.
So we are able to help people wherever you are,
Yes.
basically.
So
Yeah.
don't wait, reach out. We have opportunities for you to reach out. We've sent you links as well. So
Good.
Dr. Candace, can you tell us what's the difference really between helping and enabling?
Yeah, that is such an important question, Dawn. when we don't know the difference between helping and enabling, usually we keep enabling.
Mhm.
So I like to have really simple definitions of things. My definition of enabling is when you do something for somebody that they can and should be doing for themselves. And you keep doing that. You do that on a consistent basis. It's really devastating for the person you're doing it with, in this case, the addict, because they start to doubt their own resiliency. They start to think that, maybe you're doing this because you don't have faith in them to do this themselves. Maybe they'll never learn how to do their laundry and you're always going to do their laundry for them. And they should be doing their own laundry if they're adults, right? And most addicts are.
Absolutely.
Um, so we don't, um, I think what I would say about enabling is that enabling keeps an addict. This is hard for some people to hear, but it keeps the addict comfortable in
Mhm.
the addiction. And if the addict is comfortable in the addiction, then why on earth would they do anything differently? So this is why uh, enabling keeps addicts stuck. And
That
the one thing we don't want to do, it's not a loving act. Sometimes you feel like, oh, I love him so much. I love her so much. I'm going to do her laundry, or I'm going to give her money, or I'm going to, drive her here and there and everywhere. I'm going to do all those things because I love her. But really, when we do the things that keep an addict comfortable in their addiction so that they're not going to give up their addiction, how can that be a loving act?
yeah,
So the loved ones of the addicts, boom, the family members have to shift their thinking about this. If we keep enabling, nothing will change. And one of my favorite sayings in the whole world is, if nothing changes, nothing changes.
mhm.
And it's a tagline on my website because it's so profound and it's so teeny tiny simple, you know. So helping is when we do things, when we start to learn the ways that actually help an addict. So I know I'm using helping and help. Sometimes it's hard to explain, but we stop doing the enabling things. Instead of, Mom, I need 20 bucks, instead of saying, okay, honey, here's 20 bucks. And you know where that 20 bucks is going to go. It's going to go into their arm, it's going to go up their nose, it's going to go down their throat, right? Instead of that, you start to say, I love you so much. I love you so much. And I love you enough to not want to fund your addiction. I don't want to support you in addiction anymore. I will support your recovery when you're ready to do that. But I'm not willing to support your addiction because I hate watching you be in addiction. So I'm going to say no to you. And no, you can't have 20 bucks. Now that can be a really hard thing to do. And the addict can get really mad and, do the things that addicts do. And this is where we come in. We help you figure out how to language this, when it would be a good time to say this, how to actually do it. And we hold your hand through the whole process. So you've got us, you've got help whenever you need it. One of the things that we do is we give, people have sessions, weekly sessions, sometimes twice a week, depending on the help they need.
Mhm.
And we give people unlimited email and text support
Wow,
in between their sessions, because addiction doesn't always wait until next Tuesday when you've got your next session.
that's right.
So we're there with you, and we help you figure this all out, and we help you deal with what the addict might come back at you with, because that's really hard for loved ones.
That is, that
But
is.
it has to be done in
Mm,
order for the addict, like I say, to have a fighting chance of getting out of addiction.
right, because they can't get out of it themselves, otherwise they would. And
Well,
that's,
they
no,
won't get out. They
no,
could go and get help, and we do have some addicts who get in touch with us and say,
right,
we're done. I don't want to do this anymore, which is so wonderful when we get
it is.
that. But, if the addict is getting everything done for them, and they're being given money, and they're being driven around, and they're being, uh, there there's no incentive for the addict to change anything. So it's not that they can't change it, it's that they aren't going to change it.
Right. And
That's different.
right. But it's something that they definitely need to reach out and get help with, because we're
Mm,
hitting on a couple of very deep things about people. We have shame, we have blame, even though we
yep.
could choose not to have that. And we also have pride sometimes that holds us back from reaching out for the help that we need.
Yeah.
Um, often sometimes we also have a personality type or a bent in our personality where we're not going to do it unless we absolutely have to.
Well, that was my case. I mean, I had to reach quite the bottom to finally reach out and
Yeah.
get some help. So I understand that. And I think when people start to, especially addicts and even family members, when they read my story, when, I have a chapter in my book, this is my book. Um,
It's a beautiful
so
book.
yeah, just thought I'd show it to you. So um, when we reach that place, when people read about um, what I've been through and what I understand about addiction, because I've actually been there and I've actually recovered from it, you know, um, they feel less shame about contacting me because
Yes.
I don't have a leg to stand on
Right.
to shame anybody else. I mean,
Yes. When you've lived
you
it.
know, I've lived it. I've done things in my life that I'm not proud of, that I've had to learn how to forgive myself for when I was in my addiction,
Mhm.
So it's not a question of any of that. For anybody who's listening today, it's a question of where do you go now? I've said to people before that if I could figure out how to build a time machine, I would be the richest person in the whole wide world, and everybody, there'd be lines of people just waiting to get in to see me if I had a time machine, you know. But I don't, and I don't think anybody does. And we can't go back and change what's happened. What we can do is we can be in now and change what's happening now so that as we move on, our present and future are
Yes.
much better.
Much better. And our chances of holding it is much better when we have support. Support is vital. I
Yes,
think it's really the lifeline that
yes,
people really need.
agreed.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's a difference in the way that you work with alcohol. Is there a difference in the way that you work with people that have alcohol or drug addiction versus like there's other addictions like overeating or binging or well, there's plenty of them. Can you speak
Yeah,
to
there's
that?
gambling, there's overspending, there's video gaming for hours and hours and hours and hours. Um, yeah, I can speak to that. For the most part, there isn't a difference in the way that I work with these addictions because addiction is addiction, and it's really honestly not about the addiction.
Mhm.
It's not about what you're doing, how much you're using, what are you drinking. It's not about that. It's about what is your need inside to be doing this in the first place. Let's get to that. Because when we can get to that and we can heal that, you might even be able to play a video game or two. And then in an hour, you get up and you do something else in your life. You know, but if you don't, if you can find out, we can't heal anything that we won't allow ourselves to be aware of. So we have to become aware of what's going on for us to be able to heal. It's the same for all of us. It was for me, it is for everybody. Now, the caveat to that is that when I'm working with somebody who is using alcohol or drugs, something mind altering, like
Mhm.
there's a difference between a mind altering addiction, which of course alters the mind, or something that's mood altering that doesn't affect your mind as much. It just kind of affects you emotionally, right?
Okay.
Um,
Yes.
so what we want to make sure of is before going into, okay, what's this really about for you, and getting deep and dirty into that, we want to make sure that the person has been stabilized on with the addiction,
Mhm,
that doing that inner work isn't going to cause a big, huge trigger for them. They might get a little triggered, and everybody does in counseling. It's
mhm.
part of the deal.
Right.
But we don't want to traumatize anybody by moving too fast. So we're careful with that, especially we're careful with everybody with that, but especially with people who are using mind altering substances. We need to stabilize them, make sure they're okay physically, emotionally, and, you know, mentally okay before we do this work. But in the meantime, we can be working with the family that isn't using mind altering substances, hopefully.
Mhm.
And um, what we do is we get the family members ready, we help the family members help. Sorry, I want to say this right. We want to help the family members get the addicts ready for working with us. And as
Beautiful.
soon as they are, we want them. So we work with everybody in the family, including the addicts, when they're ready.
Wow, this is so well defined, well thought out, and
Mm,
it's
thank you.
every step has sounds like it's, you've been taking these steps for success.
Yeah.
And just like anything else, like when you go to an MD or you go somewhere, if you're not fully disclosing, if you're not willing to be honest,
Yeah.
you're delaying your progress. Is that true?
It is true, but we also understand that most people aren't going to just tell us everything totally honestly in the first
Right.
meeting. It takes a little while
It does.
to build up the trust in somebody. When people start coming to me or to one of my therapists, they don't know us from anyone, and we get that. We totally get that. So it takes a little while to build up that trust and that mutual respect, and have them feel comfortable enough to believe that we won't shame them, that we won't traumatize them, that they're safe. They're finally safe to talk about this. And with the family, there's so few places for them to go to be able to talk about this.
Yes.
And
And
Al-Anon
feed
is
it
one
out.
of those places. Al-Anon is the same 12-step program of Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. The 12 steps aren't a fit for everyone. Not
Mhm.
everybody likes them. So we are not 12-step based. We are um, quite different than that. So we are another place that you can come to. If Al-Anon or a program like that doesn't work for you, please, check us out.
Absolutely. You have some great differences actually, from that program where you believe that people actually can be healed and they
Oh,
don't have to
yes.
continue to walk in that prison of thinking
Well,
that that's just the way they are and now they're labeled for life.
I'm I'm living proof of it.
Yeah.
Like, I make the choice to stay clean and sober, to stay abstinent. I have a number of reasons that I do that. But some people who are in my situation, who've been sober for a while, they might decide that they're going to be able to have a drink, have a glass of wine at dinner, and they learn how to handle it because they're not acting on that horrible emptiness that made them drink so badly in the first place.
Yes.
Nobody has to be labeled for life. This is not a label for life.
That's so beautiful. That's
We
so
have a
beautiful.
choice. We
Mhm.
have absolutely have a choice.
Yes.
Yep.
And, just like we were talking about, there isn't any shame, there isn't any blame. Also, you can only disclose what you're aware of. So many
Yep.
of us are not aware because it might have been something that happened so long ago. Isn't that true?
Yep. There's a lot of childhood trauma that leads to addiction, that leads to behaviors that are dysfunctional. And, until we get to the root of those things, um, and sometimes people get afraid to do that kind of work. They're scared. But I would ask you, which is scarier? Continuing to live the way you've been living, or being in a little bit of pain while you work on this stuff. So I I'm reminded that I believe that there are two kinds of pain. There's the kind of pain that just goes on and on and on and on and on forever, on and on and on, every day, all the time. That's what you feel. Then there is the pain that hurts. It's painful. It's pain,
Mhm.
but there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And if you work through that pain, you can you can come out into freedom. And you get to choose. It's a planet of free will. We all get to choose which kind of pain we want to live in.
Yeah.
So, for the people who are listening who would like to move into the light at the end of the tunnel, even if it's a tiny little pinprick of light that they see right now, that's fantastic. Please come join us.
I love that. I just love that. It reminds me of just, taking out a splinter. We don't like that.
Yeah.
There's some discomfort, there's
Yep.
fear,
It
there's
hurts.
all of these things. But we know that if we don't do it, I mean,
It gets
literally,
infected. Yeah.
and it could get to a point where you would actually have to remove your finger. I mean, it's
Yep.
really quite, there are things that in our life that are really quite devastating. And if we can just take a look and just think, wow, if I could get to that place and really
Yeah.
deal with just that, I could
Yeah.
be free from
I can be
everything that I
free.
don't like about what's going on with me, or
Yeah.
and that's
So if I can say one other thing about that,
Mhm.
so often the loved ones of people with addiction are what we call codependent. It's a
Yes,
buzzword, and my simple definition of codependency is when you put other people's needs ahead of your own on a fairly consistent basis. So your needs are on the back burner. You're saying yes a whole lot when you really don't want to. You'd
yes,
really like to be able to say no, but you're scared that somebody will get mad at you if you say no. They'll be angry, they'll be disappointed in you or frustrated in you, and you don't know how to handle that. And so you just keep saying yes because you don't want that conflict. You don't know what to do with that conflict. That usually stems from childhood for most people.
yes.
And I was like that too. I was codependent for a long time, and there's a lot of resentment in being codependent. I meet your needs. Well, what about me? I
Yeah.
never say that. I never say what about me
No, but we
because
think
somebody
it.
might get angry with me if I say what about me. But really, what about you? And so um, when we learn, I know this firsthand, when we learn how to deal with that conflict, when we learn how to deal with somebody else's anger, when I learned how to deal with somebody else's anger toward me or their disappointment or their frustration toward me, I became emotionally free to be me
Wow.
and to be able to say no when I mean no. To do it in a way that hopefully doesn't get the other person mad, but if they are, I matter. I
Yes.
matter too in this equation, you
You're
know?
being authentic to yourself, which is
Absolutely.
self-love and
Yep.
self-care. Do you have a program
Sometimes,
for that?
sorry?
Do you have a program for that, for people that just deal with some of that? Because I know
Yeah.
you're doing it with their families, so
Yep. 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 I just actually took on a client who's dealing with that.
okay.
That's what she wants help with. Because codependency is an addictive behavior. I see it as an addictive behavior. We're hiding behind something else so that nobody will really know who we are. Because if they know who we are, they won't like us. And it just goes on and on. That's that pain that never stops. So, absolutely, codependency, I think, is underneath every addiction there is.
Oh,
So,
that is just mind blowing to me. I love that. There are so many people that I talk to that deal with this and these repeating behaviors and trying to learn how to get out of it. It's so
yeah,
wonderful that we know that you can take care of those things. That's
yep,
fantastic. That is
yep.
fantastic.
A
So
whole new way to live. It's fabulous.
freedom is a beautiful gift, isn't it?
Yep,
It's really a
yeah,
beautiful gift.
yeah.
Are you able to talk about, we'd love for you to talk a little bit about how do you know if you have, like, say you're a parent and you're not sure if your child is showing signs of addiction or not. Sometimes people find out a little too late. What are some signs of those who are dealing with an addiction? besides maybe the, the windmill of continuous wrongdoing or whatever.
Yeah, you mean before they get into trouble with the police or something? Yeah.
Yes.
Um, yeah, there are signs, and the trick is that parents need to be willing to see those signs, and
Yes.
often they're not until it's way later, you know. So so one of them is different moods, mood swings.
Okay.
And sometimes that can be a little dicey because when a child becomes an adolescent, their job is to individuate and go away from you as a parent, and their hormones are raging, as they say, and so there are mood swings, but there's a difference. There's a darkness in the mood swings.
Okay.
um yeah, and um there's a change often in a child's, I like to say playgrounds and playmates, but I mean, they hang out in different places than they used to. They hang out with different kids than they used to, and they're doing things that are, they're not abiding by curfews. They're not going by the rules of your home that you've established that they always did go by. You know, so sometimes they can become abusive verbally. Sometimes they can become abusive physically, where they're pushing somebody in the family, they're punching holes in the wall when they get angry. There's that kind of thing. And also, definitely school achievement. Their grades start to go down. It's very hard for a kid to be in addiction and have good grades and be doing well in school. Like, that's almost unheard of. It's the same for an adult who is drinking a lot or using a lot or playing video games until 4 o'clock in the morning, and then starts again at 6, to be able to get themselves to work and be successful at work. So when addiction is in the mix, the behaviors start to change, and we need to be cognizant of that. Parents sometimes want to say, oh, it's just a phase, and maybe it is, but maybe it's not.
Wow, that's really good. As you're
Yeah.
speaking, I'm I'm a mom of four, so I understand. Um, it sounds like those behaviors. If you have this feeling that they're hiding something, that something's wrong, because
Something's wrong.
kids don't normally lash out. If your child doesn't normally lash out like that,
Right.
they're protecting their secret, whatever that secret happens to be.
Yeah.
Because like there could be shame or blame, or they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to deal with it. Can
Yeah.
you speak into that? What are some can people like call your office and find out ways to talk to them, or what do you suggest for people? Because I know you really want to work with the addicts and you want to work with the families and real transformation. So we're talking right now the prep and the things that happen beforehand for you to be aware of. Where
Well,
can people go, or what can they learn
well,
about
they
this?
can come to us if they're
Okay.
concerned that their children, or their adult children, are changing and starting to do things that they shouldn't be doing. We can work with that, and we can try to stop it in its tracks
Wow.
so that it doesn't have to continue on. Usually by the time families see me, see us, they're at the end of their rope. They've been
Yes.
dealing with this for a long time. They've tried different kinds of counseling. They've tried different things. They've gone here, they've gone there. Nothing has really helped. And they come to us and they're just, uh, they're at the end of what they can deal with. Um, and often they come in and they say, we know we've been enabling, but dot, dot, dot. We didn't know what else to do. We didn't know, and you don't know what you don't know until you know it.
Right.
So when we can help a family heal and know some things before it gets that big,
Mhm.
that's fantastic.
Oh,
That's
that's
much
great.
better.
Oh, that's great. That's great to know. I find that
Yeah.
families either do one or the other. Either they're really loving and they do become very enabling, or they love until their wick is done and that, they have to move into what people know as tough love. And then that
Yeah.
gets to a really difficult place. The whole point, I think,
Well,
is to get them find some kind of willingness somewhere along the line, because that can actually end up isolating the addict completely from it's
well,
not
it can, but it
support
doesn't
system.
have to. It can,
It
but it
doesn't
doesn't
have
have to.
to.
Um, we help people set boundaries. We help people look at what their boundaries are because for different families in the same exact situation, the boundaries that the family is willing to set could be different.
Sure.
We don't tell them what to set. They decide what they're going to do, and we teach them how to language that, and we teach them how um, to maintain the boundary. Because if you're not going to maintain it, don't bother setting it.
Right.
You know, the addict will just keep trying to manipulate you. You caved before, you'll cave again. I just have to keep poking at you, you know. Um, but I want to go back to what you were saying about tough love.
Hmm.
My
Please.
approach is based in tough love.
Hmm.
And I think tough love has gotten a really bad rep
Thank you. Let's
over the
talk about it.
years.
Yeah,
Yeah, because tough love is love.
it
And
is.
tough love is, I love you so much that I'm not willing to do what isn't healthy for you. I'm not willing to do that anymore with you because I love you so much, not as a punishment, not because I hate you or I want you away from me, but because I don't want you to continue in this life. I don't want to support you in this life. That is a form of tough love. I don't think there's anything more loving than that.
Yes, I agree.
So,
There's a
yeah,
time for that. And
yeah,
there's a time, and we need to know when that time is. And we need to
yes,
understand that. And we do need support. And that's the beauty of what you do is you bring the support to the family. It's not just about that person. It's the whole family that's involved. And that's a beautiful gift. That's a beautiful
yeah.
gift. It
It
is.
is. It is.
It
Yeah.
really, really is. It's amazing. You talk a lot in your book about self-love and self-respect.
Mm.
Would you like to share a little bit about that?
Oh, I would love to. It's one of my favorite topics.
Yes.
Um, I see a big difference in what's called self-respect and what's called self-esteem.
Hmm.
And a lot of people use those terms synonymously, and I think there's a big difference. Because self-esteem is when I say to you, Dawn, you're a great interviewer, or I think your hair looks lovely, or I love your shirt. It's coming from the outside of you to you.
Okay.
And the problem with self-esteem is that if you don't believe in your own self, if you don't think your hair looks nice, or you don't think you're a great interviewer, and I tell you you are, you're just going to think I'm crazy.
Yes,
If
that's
you
true.
don't have the self-esteem, we can get it from all of these places, but it's not going to land unless we've done some work on ourselves usually. Self-respect is just the opposite. Self-respect comes from the inside out. Self-respect is about really learning how to care for yourself, really learning how to believe in yourself and like yourself. I mean, I'd actually rather say self-like than self-love. People don't know how to love themselves. That's a big, big, huge concept. How do I love myself? Well, let's start with whether you like yourself. Self-respect is about how you feel about yourself when you look in the mirror. And I don't necessarily mean that physically. Like, who do you see? Who are you? When you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, how do you feel about yourself? It's about, do you like yourself or do you not like yourself? And I've spent so many years not liking myself.
Hmm.
That has changed dramatically. Most of the
Yeah.
time, I like myself a lot. I have periods where I'm in a growth period and my hair stands up on end and I don't like myself so much, but that doesn't happen very often and it doesn't happen for long.
Right.
And this is what I want to help people feel about themselves because it's so much better to respect oneself. When we respect ourselves, we treat ourselves well, and we don't put up with other people not treating us well. We teach people how to treat us. This is a Dr. Phil-ism.
Yes.
I'm not a great fan of Dr. Phil's. I think he's kind of arrogant sometimes, but he says some things that really matter, and that's one of them. We teach people how to treat us. We absolutely do. And if I don't think I'm worth much, that's going to show. And I'm going to let you get away with things. I'm going to let you get away with saying things to me that hurt me, and I'm not going to do anything about it.
Wow.
I'm not living that way anymore. Once we have our self-respect, nobody can take that away from us without our permission.
That's
And
right.
I'm not giving it away to anybody. And so when we have that, and all of that's filled up inside of ourselves, then if you want to tell me that you like my shirt or my hair or something, then I might be able to have that.
Yes. That's brilliant.
So the self-respect is like the cake, and the self-esteem is like the icing and the sprinkles and the cherries, but you've got to have the cake first.
That's right. That's right. Or else it's not landing on anything of substance.
No, and it just gets us sick, like all that sugar. I love sugar, but all that sugar is too much,
Right. Oh
Yeah.
gosh, that's just such a beautiful picture for our listeners.
Yeah.
That is amazing. So self-care comes from all of that self-respect.
Yes.
And that's
Self-care comes from, but sometimes we can start by starting to care about ourselves.
right.
Little baby steps of caring about ourselves. And then the self-respect starts to build. I want to get a t-shirt for every client I work with, everybody in the world, that says, I'm here too.
Yes, exactly.
I
Each one of
matter
us
too.
matter. Each one of us matter.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what we look like. Well, here's the thing. I always go back to, why are we fighting against things that we had no control over? We didn't have control over our skin color, where we lived, who our parents were, our eye
right.
color. We were
No.
born with these things. I love Gaga's song, We're Born This Way. There are things that we are born with. Now we're older. I mean, we can change our hair color. We can pop in some lenses
contacts.
and change contacts,
Change our
eye color if we want to. But the thing is why fight against that? We have an outside appearance, and we also have things that go on the inside. And those are two different spheres to learn to love and respect as well. And
I think that's a whole different conversation.
It
is. I totally agree. Yeah. And if we're changing our hair color and popping in contact lenses to change our eye color, hopefully we're doing that from a sense of fun, just enjoyment. Let's play with it instead of a place of, I don't like myself with my regular hair color and eye color, and I'm not okay that way, because that's not going to work well in your life.
No. And that's what we're talking about.
That's not self-respect. And when we don't feel good about ourselves, that's when addiction starts. We start eating too much, we start spending too much, we start smoking too much pot, we start drinking too much wine, we start eating too much chocolate, which is something I have to be careful with. But, we do that when we don't feel good about ourselves.
Yes. We find something that
So
comforts us.
the way to not be addicted is to feel better about ourselves. And this is what we help you do. And this is what we help your addict do, because there's no other way.
That is so mind-blowing. That is beautiful. Wow.
Thank you.
On that note, on these brilliant notes, I just am so grateful. What are your final thoughts? Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners? And also, it will be on the video, but I'd like for Dr. Candace to share with how you can reach her and be in contact with her. Give it to a friend. Be generous.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely. If you know somebody who you think might benefit from our services or we can help, then please let them know. So, I do a fair amount of interviews and podcasts, and I'm often asked do you have anything else that you want to say? Like you just asked. And what I really like to say is, please don't give up. Don't give up. Even if it feels like this is just never going to work. I don't know what to do. I'm overwhelmed. I can't stand it. Don't give up. Reach out, get some help. There's help here for you. So we're here. And, I would suggest that you go on my website, you read my book. It's an award-winning book. And who thought that would ever happen when I was in my addiction, right? It's an award-winning book. A lot of people really get a lot out of it, even if they don't have addiction. Some people have said, it's like a parenting book. You should, right? It covers some of what we're talking about today. And if you're in this horrific situation of being a family member with an addict, you're going to see yourself on a whole lot of the pages. It's an easy read. I made sure of that. So it's not like a textbook or something. Some people just start it and don't stop until they finish it. So the way to reach us is through my website, which is www.lovewithboundaries.com, lovewithboundaries.com. And that's what tough love is, right? Get back to the tough love thing. Tough love is love with boundaries. It doesn't mean it's not love. It is. And sometimes it's the best love ever. So lovewithboundaries.com. On my website, there's a place where you can fill out a questionnaire. And I think Dawn's going to have that information because I'm going to give it to her to put up. So if you would like a free 30-minute consultation with us to tell us about what's going on with you, see if you're a fit for our services, see if we're a fit for you, we're happy to do that. We do many free 30-minute consultations, and it's a wonderful thing. So you can interview us, kind of thing. But what you need to do to be able to have that is to fill out the questionnaire. And then as soon as we get that, once you submit it, we get it, we'll get back to you right away. And because we know that addiction doesn't wait, and we'll set up a time for that consultation. And then we see whether we move forward or we don't. Most of the time we do.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Candace, for being with us, being with our listeners today. What wonderful and beautiful hope that's been given, love that's been shared, and love in ways that we can speak love and we can find out more. So I want to encourage you, if you have friends, most of us know people, and don't wait till it's too late. I love that. I love that concept. I love that we don't have to think that we're stuck in this for life either. Right. So there are reoccurring patterns that's addictive to you and or addictive to somebody that you love. Let's
and it happens in all kinds of families. It's not, some people say, well, how could it happen in my family? But it can happen in any kind of family. It could even happen to the Waltons or the Brady Bunch.
Absolutely. If you're human, right? It's really humanness. It's really us learning how to live and how to be congruent with what's happening to us. And sometimes we don't have that ability to be that, and we don't know where else to turn. We don't even sometimes know how to articulate that. And we end up just moving to something for some comfort.
Yep. That's what it's about.
Or
moving to something for some comfort, and let's see if we can move to something different for some comfort. I'm not against comfort.
I am not
against
either.
comfort, but let's find something that's healthy for you to get comfortable with.
Right. Just like we mentioned earlier, like sugar's great, but it's not great if that's all you eat. It's
in moderation. I'd love to eat chocolate all day long. I would be so happy if I could do that.
I'm hoping that that's the gift that we get in heaven.
That'd be good.
That'd be good. We all have our loves, but too much of things we're really not meant for that.
No, there can't be too much chocolate though. Come on.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I'm not going to respond to that because I'm going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
Thank you, friends, for joining in with us today. We hope that you receive some great nuggets and some good food for thought. If you'd like to share this video with someone, reach out to Leadership is Life. We're happy to help you. If you know someone that can use and that could be helped with love and freedom, please contact Dr. Candace. We want to thank you for your time. I'm Dawn Suji with Leadership is Life, and we're going to say bye for now. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.